this out, Heather, after
Okay.
the fact. Okay. So we're ready.
Great. All right, we're starting. A little bit of technical difficulties, but 3:08, we're starting. Call to order. Imagine a gavel coming down. Pledge of Allegiance. I almost laughed out loud. That's what I was trying to get my kids to see if they would stay and do Pledge of Allegiance. But I don't know if it's appropriate if we have a flag near us, or if we should just skip that one. Is there a feeling that we should do it among everyone, or do we want to skip?
I think we can skip. I don't have a flag in front of me.
I think we can skip. I don't have a flag.
Okay, that's what's going to be skipped. Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, motion carries. Okay, and I had Maureen set this out. Thank you to Maureen if she's there. The norms. We all have those in our inboxes right now, the governance norms. Does anyone want to read them? Can anyone pull them up quickly?
Heather, do you have them in front of you?
I can read them. I'll read them. Yes. Let me grab it. Okay. These are our governance team norms, which are read before every meeting, and afterwards we talk as a group to see how we performed against them. So we agree to focus on the best interest of all students at every grade level, work together as a governance team to set direction for the district, come prepared and be fully present and engaged, do not interrupt, avoid side conversation. Listen with empathy, be mindful of your assumptions, engage in dialogue before debate, commit to constructive conflict, exhibit positive body language, mannerisms, and tone of voice, maintain and protect impartiality and confidentiality, commit to no surprises, conduct all board business and board meetings, respect and support board decisions, speak with one voice regarding board decisions. Great. Okay, moving forward, let me go back to our agenda. Okay. Next, superintendent's report. We start with the COVID-19 update.
Okay. So we had our daily conference call this morning at 11, and the big items now are there's the extension of the suspension of school for an additional week. So now it's extended until the end of spring break. So we're a full 2 weeks out before spring break, and then including spring break. So estimated day of return now is April the
13th.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, April 13th return. Honestly, I don't know that anybody really believes that, but that's where we are right now. So we would intend to continue to deliver instruction for the next week and 3 days, 2 weeks and 3 days, and then take spring break, and then be back at whatever we're back at. So a couple things that are happening. Andrew is furiously getting the ability to teach teachers how to use Zoom, because Zoom is a better platform than this platform for a large group. And they've done, apparently, he was reluctant on Zoom in the beginning because they did not have a good history of safeguards. And he was concerned about exposing our kids to, anything, predators, whatever. And so he now has had the time to do research on everything that Zoom has put in place, and he's quite comfortable pushing that out to the teachers. So that's what his priority is today and tomorrow morning. At that point, teachers who have been really, chomping at the bit to do video conferencing with their kids will be able to do that. And then the next thing that we're working on in light of the extended closure is to get more nimble with the content delivery for K3 at Basic, so we're not copying 40,000 more pieces of paper. And Joseph, I can't remember his last name, but Joseph is in our back in the Xerox room for I think he spent one night last week, basically, running these copies for the packet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we're going to start rethinking that tomorrow morning. We've got, several days before that becomes something that we have to do, but I'm sure, I know teachers are already pushing out some content to their families. So Kent has a very slick system of keeping track of what teachers are assigning and checking in with kids, and they're doing like almost trying to do a broadcast. And so, I think it's actually what's come up more in conversation than worry about actual content delivery is like staying connected. So I think that's so telling about our system and our teachers and what their priority is and what they realize is so strong about our schools, and that Grant has really, been great at making at articulating. It's awful when you can't find the word articulating. Articulating the importance of connection before content. So it's really it's showing itself right now. The third thing I wanted to talk about, second thing, third, whatever, is childcare. So the county is activating childcare centers at schools near hospitals. So Basage is one of those places. We will be having 4 of our classrooms used for kindergarten, TK through 5th grade students whose parents work at Marin General. Nurses, doctors, anybody in the healthcare industry who needs to be at work, who can't be unless their kids are cared for. Raquel Rose is spearheading this effort from the county. Other schools that are involved are Vallecito, and so that's near Kaiser, and the other is Rancho in Novato, which I presume is near Novato Community Hospital. The preschool community action of Marin is taking care of the preschool kids, and the North Bay Child Care Center is doing birth through 3-year-olds. The libraries, some South Novato and Corte Madera or Fairfax libraries are being deployed for 6th through 12th graders. And those are for not for drop-in or for people who, just need a break. They're for people who have to go to work in healthcare and can't unless their kids have care. So right now, so the first order of business yesterday was to ascertain where those classrooms might be located and to make sure that district schools could deploy them in that way. And now they're furiously working to staff them. And so we've connected Caitlin Schmidt from Marin Enrichment with Raquel, because her people want to work. The Ys are getting involved in staffing. But the interesting thing that everybody's wrapping their head around right now is the fact that anybody who works in public school is a disaster service worker in the case of something like this, and can be deployed basically against their will to work in a situation. And this, in our county right now, in Marin County, these childcare centers are the disaster. This is where the disaster work is needed. And so might be something else down the road, but for now, we just need to get these things staffed. So the classrooms can only host 12 kids each. And so depending on the age, the ratio of adult to student it varies. So there could have to be 2 people in the room or 1. And so all of that is, I'm actually giving you as much specificity as was given to us. It's a really fluid situation.
Liz, in terms of staffing, is there any way we can make that available to our employees if they wanted to?
Absolutely, but there's no extra pay involved. So,
okay.
Our employees are being paid right now.
Right.
And the staffing of these centers is more of a compulsion, not an offer.
Got it.
Unless it's something like Marin Enrichment. I'm not again, I'm going to start making it up now. That is like as much as we got.
Yep.
Trying to open on Thursday. So it's
Thursday. Wow.
I don't even know what the food situation is going to be like for kids.
Right.
So there's a lot to figure out. Medhani, our custodian Medhani will likely do the cleaning in those rooms, and we're now just figuring out how we make, like, if he's the only custodian working, it gets really complicated when everybody's getting paid. Probably going to need to work up some gift cards or something. I don't know, but that's all. People are being, at this time, apparently what was happening was CTA was pushing back hard on this disaster worker thing, even though when you sign up, when you're inducted into a job in a public school system, you basically sign something that says, yes, I'll be a disaster worker. And we all think of earthquakes, right? We all think, well, we'll stick around as long as it takes to take
right.
Like, nobody ever really talked about a pandemic. In any event, doesn't matter. It's our role and our obligation. So CTA was not being particularly friendly about that in the beginning, but now apparently has come around. And I have a call with our union tomorrow morning about several items, including an MOU that pertains to providing distance learning, all these things that they want to just get ahead of to make sure that nobody gets their rights stepped on in this situation. I'm sure, Davina, you're in the same thicket, sticky thicket, wicket.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's see. So that's childcare. And then as far as extended break, I talked about. And then the last thing that I have, and then I'll take all the questions that I can answer, is we just today purchased $100 gift cards to Trader Joe's, and we're distributing those to every child who qualifies for free or reduced lunch. They're here in the office to be picked up anytime before 7 tonight when I'll be going home. And then any that are left over, Amber's coming to get, and she's going to deliver them to children's homes tomorrow. So that covers 4 weeks of lunches, because lunch is about $5. And we'll see what happens after that. And
Should we save one for the custodian who has to work?
Yeah, maybe. The only thing to know about the gift cards is they aren't technically something we should be spending money on as a district, because we can't control what they're used for. In Trader Joe's has items that aren't necessarily the basis of a nutritious lunch. And so our auditor is like, And so I'm actively seeking donations to reimburse the district for those gift cards. I already have $500.
Who are you seeking reimbursement from?
It's word of mouth.
Oh, okay.
Just donations, and they go through KIC, and KIC will then just funnel them straight to the district to cover the cost of the gift cards.
Got it.
As you know, I mean, we pay for our free and reduced lunches out of our general fund,
Right?
And that's justifiable. Boy, I'm telling you what, you put out an email about gift cards, and people come a lot faster than when you put out an email about bag lunches.
Yeah.
Right now. Anyway,
do a telethon.
Yeah. What was I say? So when we're paying with the general fund money and we're reimbursing PTA, who has to pay Good Earth for our free and reduced lunches, we know what we're buying. We're buying lunch. Whereas when you give somebody a Trader Joe's gift card, it could be beer for all we know, and they can't restrict those. So we have people, that's the concern, I think, of the auditor.
I love the creative idea, though, Liz, and I know you and Erica worked hard on that. And I think that even the creativity of, two things I think you saw with that, but one, the idea of not forcing it to be Good Earth, which I think is great for the idea that it's just farther out and, quite frankly, more expensive than other grocery alternatives. And then secondly, I think it really solves the issue of the daily lunch pickups, which is, I can't even imagine what that would be like in this setting. So I just think it's such a great creative idea. And fingers crossed, the auditor. It sounds like they're still going to research this, or is this
I just think there's going to be a lot. I mean, you may get something at the audit that says concern, whatever. But I think by then we'll have it all paid back anyway. I'm not really worried.
Right.
How did you communicate this to the families, and how many have taken this up on it?
Literally, there have been people coming through the door. I sent this email and text out about 25 minutes ago.
Wow.
And
Wow. Wow.
so, it's
Yeah.
good.
Great.
It's good.
It's
And
great.
It's great.
I consulted with Elvia Azatuno about where people shopped, and even though she works at Trader Joe's, she did say, your money goes farthest there. And I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
can people get there? And she says, yeah, people can get there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because we thought, I don't know, we weren't going to do Woodlands or Molly Stone, and I thought Good Earth was way too far away, and also
Yes.
it's so expensive
Yep.
that we weren't going to get as much. And Woodlands said, oh well, they can come get a sandwich here every day, and I'm like, that doesn't
No.
work.
No.
So,
It's so good. Yes. Thank you for that.
This is good.
So some things about the food. I don't know do you want to say more things than just take all questions, or you want to stay on the food topic?
Whatever you want to do. I'm done. That's all I have.
Okay,
Oh,
I have a
great.
lot of questions, but I'll stay on the food topic. So for the food topic, I think it would be great in the next communication, if you weren't planning on already, is telling the whole community what we're doing, because as you saw from Tori's email, there's a lot of concern in our community about how we are taking care of all of our students. So I think it would be great to just say that this is, what's in place. And then also to be able to say, like, numerically, like how many, how much money, how many gift cards, and have that be tracked. And I think that will also increase the donation. So like in that communication, if there was a way, a link or something to donate to KIC or whatever system is in place, just making sure that we're keeping track, and then contacting, reaching out specifically to maybe a family that didn't show up, so
Yeah,
that
they're getting it delivered to their house tomorrow.
Oh, the gift cards are going to their house?
Yeah, Amber Hatfield's going to drive them around. Perfect. Anybody who doesn't take one tonight.
Great.
Right.
So I think the community would be really happy to hear, even if they're not participating in this, what's happening, and then know how they can get involved.
I was sort of toying around with that, because the person who reached out to me and said, I'd like to help with anything you're doing. And I got back to her and said, this is what we're doing. And she sent money. She said, are you going to let everybody know? And I said, I don't know. I guess.
I think we let everybody know, because
Okay.
every district who is offering meals is very public about not who is it taking up on it, but just like SFUSD gave, we did 800 meals today. And this is the amount of families that have participated. And I think it'll be important for us to have record of that, for people to know that that's what we're doing. And then also, we don't know how much money we're going to need, how long we're going to want to maintain this support.
Yeah.
So it will encourage people to donate.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's a good idea to let people know. And the concern that we got from the community member today, I think is going to go a long way to proactively alleviating that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
On that, with regard to communication, are you going to do your Thursday? Are you going to be on your regular weekly? What's the plan in terms of communication?
I'm going to send something out tonight because of the revised number of weeks that we're being kept out of school. So I wanted to update on that. And then I wanted to, I'll put this in for sure. There was something else I was going to talk about, but what I was thinking about for the weekly newsletter is basically just having information about the our resources that are available for people to access while we're out.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
Nobody needs to be reading about, well, there's nothing else. We're not previewing anything. Nothing's happening. But try to keep it as informative. I'll write a little newsy, 2-sentence preamble. And then, but I think right now, it's more effective to send out frequent, short updates on what public health is saying, and sort of off timing, so that they, get people's attention. That's my thought.
Yeah. No, I agree. Go ahead. So ahead, Davina, go ahead.
Yeah. So we had an issue come up in SFUSD because there was so much variance around the distance learning piece, and equity issues involved in that. And I just want to give everybody, build everyone's awareness around that basically you're either legally you're closed, and that means that you're closed, or you are considered a distance learning site. And that would mean that you have confirmation of every single student having a device, knowing how to use that device, or that the packets are for all. And so if you're not at that place, what the CDE is saying, and like our lawyers just wrote a response to the SFUSD board about this, because there's been complaints about this on both sides of the coin, of providing stuff and not providing stuff, is that we are being, really careful about optional, and making sure that students are not penalized with their grades. That if a teacher cannot, and when I'm saying cannot, I'm telling you this is what SFUSD is doing. Obviously, we'll make our own decisions for KSD, but that because of people's differing family situations, either childcare or whatever, that you can't penalize students for not turning stuff in. So right now we're trying to research if we can help them in the positive way, though. So let's say, for example, was turning their stuff in, we are not seeing guidance that that you can deny it helping a student. So like, student completes everything and we can give them credit for it, but we can't negatively impact anybody's grade, and that has to be clear to families. So that's just kind of what we're grappling with. And then we are moving towards an actual distance learning model where then right now we're verifying literally student by student that they have a device, that they have figured out the internet. And then once we can have that logged, then the whole district can move to a different model. So anyways, I just wanted to put that out there because it also speaks to the community member, to Tori's email, and kind of the issues is that it's not to delay the great work that some teachers are doing. Asher's class is doing a Zoom meeting, all these things, but just to be mindful of optional versus mandatory. And then also I'm curious if we have like an actual log or confirmation student by student that they have access to a device if they need one.
Just so you know, on the Kent side today, they did a check-in with everybody to write a response to a Google Doc saying, yes, I received this. And it sounds like they were building that log for the Kent kids, but I don't know about the basic side.
Well, it's fourth grade only for Chromebook.
Yeah.
K through 3 is not expected to have that.
Right.
So Davina, what's the lesson for us?
I think the lesson is being cautious about grades, especially and what is mandatory, and using. So I crafted some messaging to go out to parents today that said, continuity of learning is important for us, and we know that this can be a support for your family. Here are the resources to continue your learning, kind of thing, but also with a disclaimer on there that if your student is not able to complete these assignments, their grade will not be impacted by that until we are able to, something like that. So like a disclaimer, which I know that there are parents that will be worried about that disclaimer. And I'm not saying that disclaimer is shared with students. So it's not that the teachers are saying that to the kids. That's just the communication to parents. Let us know how we can support you. Continuity of learning is important, but that we're just really careful about the grades piece of it, and that we're really careful about having full confirmation, not just sending the surveys out, but making sure that each and every student they've confirmed their ability to do the work.
Yeah. So that one, the second part was taken care of today, and then the first part, I'm thinking there's a slight difference between high school and K-8 in terms of the emphasis on grades.
Yeah. Well, but this is K-8. I'm talking about K-8 that we've had pushback. So this is K-12. So all my meetings right now are K-12. So this has come up for elementary school as well. It was actually an elementary school complaint that is being legal action threatened and everything. So it is, I think, relevant to all.
I'll share that with Sally tomorrow.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't mean that we're saying anything different to students.
Right.
I'm happy for my kids to know it's required.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, required.
Cover. We call that
And-
cover.
And if I can jump in, two pieces on the sort of the distance learning, remote learning. Having two middle schoolers, my observation thus far is that they do not have enough to do. And that, I understand we're in early days, everyone's doing the best they can, and we're going to be constantly evolving. But if this is really going to be as long as it looks like it is, and who knows if we come back April 13th as currently planned, I think that the more Andrew can do to help get teachers at Kent live on Google Classroom to actually be holding class that kids can sit and watch, and then have periods of time where they're doing assignments separate from that. And, you know, they probably have other ideas too, but I would like to see us, especially for the students who may not have parents at home helping them with all this, I would like to see more of that community interaction and direct teacher contact.
Yeah, I would echo the same. I think the other observation that I've seen is that I think there's just consistency that, you know, and this is early days, so I'm not faulting anyone, but I think as it extends out, the issue of kind of having consistency across different grade levels and different kind of like, what is our expectation as a district, what we're doing. I mean, I do think some teachers are going to go right to it and put up videos right away, and that's great.
Right.
But what if someone doesn't? And what's that kind of expectation level? And as a district, how can we talk about that? I think that's really important.
Because even if we're not necessarily grading or expecting everyone will have done every bit of this, the more weeks of this we have, the more I worry about our students actually meeting the benchmarks they need to meet by the end of the school year. And if we're really worried about the achievement gap and closing the gap, then every week that goes by has the potential to throw us further into that gap if we're not making sure that all of our students are really getting the content and engaged.
Right. The other thing that we're looking into, so we're looking into Zoom as well as the best source because of the what it can provide, but also teachers doing like EL lessons over Zoom, things like that. That is more like instruction with the teacher, because the big thing is the gap widens because of the absence of a teacher and relying on the parent. So definitely looking into that piece a lot, and Zoom is definitely what has been identified there. When you said grading, the other wording that we can use is nobody's saying to not provide feedback to students. So we can also use that terminology, is that, teachers can still be providing feedback. I would just, caution against wording like grades. But feedback, we've been using that word, a lot, like that teachers are engaging and providing feedback. Unfortunately, in San Francisco, the union has not agreed to provide any instruction this week. So we are on like a day-by-day negotiating. And so we had to pull back all of like the great work that many schools and teachers were doing because of complaints that it wasn't uniform across and that it wasn't agreed.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. That's too bad. It's a bad look for CTA and for all of its affiliates, or UAFT, whatever. It's a bad look for unions when they do that. Okay. What else? Other questions? We're in day 2, people.
I remember that there was some discussion in one of the communications from KTA, I think it was, about making sure that the teachers themselves had connectivity and equipment in order to participate in distance learning. I suggest we could remind them that they're welcome on campus to do that stuff with the equipment that's there and the connectivity that's on campus. Is that true?
Yeah, as far as of right now, whoever we are, K-8 education is still considered an essential function. And if you're providing distance learning, and so the sites are open, and people know that.
That's a really good point to reiterate. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, that went out in an email this morning. Just all staff.
On a positive note, maybe something to highlight in the communication is, I think parents are building huge appreciation, if they didn't have it already.
Yes, underline that.
I mean, so well received. The day that we come back, it will just be like celebration in the streets.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And I also think there has been really nice examples throughout our community of teachers. I mean, I'm thinking of the Barbara Libby one who's offering, you know, these
Yeah.
classes that she's doing in the morning where, you know,
Totally.
families will get together and for 15 minutes and we're, you know, so she's broadcasting. So I think there are a lot of, you know, really positive examples. But I do think, and this is just a question I have in general is, so we hear about, you know, private schools that are offering the kind of real time, you know, teaching, like their day starts at 8:30 and they're just running classes the way they normally would. Is that even something that comes up? And this is my ignorance of, you know, I mean, especially Davina, what you just talked about with the unions. Is this something that comes up, Liz, on the calls that you're on within the county that public schools are looking at in terms of actually trying to replicate a day of, you know, teaching? Or is that just not talked about yet?
Not as of today. No, I think,
Okay.
So Branson is doing that with Zoom, where it's expected that the teachers and the students are abiding by their regular schedule.
Right,
So
yeah.
8:30 first period, everyone's on, and I know MA is also doing that. I assume MC is doing that, but the schedule's
Yeah.
the same, the workload's the same. I had another comment, Liz. I don't know if you want to emphasize this. I think communities and connectivity is one of the reasons why our district is special. But I think part of the reason why we have a 3-week lockdown is because a lot of youth are asymptomatic and they don't feel the symptoms of the coronavirus. And so they're still socializing and gathering. So part of the reason why various governments shut down the town is to prevent that from happening. To the extent that we can emphasize, you know, that why we want to encourage community building and connectivity, we don't want to encourage play dates and having, you know, gatherings, you know, to form and have this as a play date or vacation. There's a balance there, but I think it's important to emphasize, you know, it's not appropriate to have 10, 20 kids get together during this period.
right. There was a number that Dr. Willis put out this morning of about 3 in a play date.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, there is actually a
I think
number.
it's really,
Okay.
really important
Yeah.
to emphasize that in this communication.
You know, on that note, real quickly, I know things evolve so quickly. Is that when you talked before? I think the last time we met, there was the ability to have small groups meet potentially at our schools for, you know, like I don't know, you know, is that still a possibility or not happening at all? This is I'm thinking more about special ed or things like that are meetings that could potentially take place.
Not at this time. Nobody's talking about doing that.
Okay.
I think that actually anyway, Virginia's has been she spent all of the last 2 days with her special ed staff,
Yeah.
and they are working through all of the issues, the real and potential. But at this point, I think now that we're actually becoming a childcare site too. I'm not sure about bringing kids back onto campus. More likely that they'll do like small group remotely. Like a speech group is 2 or 3 kids, and they can put them on something like this or on Zoom and have a speech session without bringing people into the same room.
Right. No, that makes sense. I was just curious if this sites were going to be used for that in the future. It makes perfect sense for all the reasons.
I don't know. You know, it's all moving. It's a moving target.
Yeah.
And Liz, if I could jump in, just, you know, on that IEP front, I would say that, again, as this goes on, right now, what we've gotten on that front is a total of 2 emails that are just kind of general suggestions that really don't relate to any specific feedback or work. We are continuing tutoring with our tutor via FaceTime. I don't know whether IEP services can be done by this Google Meetup or FaceTime or something else, but it would seem to me, again, the more weeks of this we have, the further behind these students will fall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Share that.
Yeah. Thank you.
Anything else? I know, deep breaths.
Deep breath. I know. I'm like, I don't even know where to go.
I know. So Liz, you have daily phone calls about this. Is that how it stands for right now? So things are just going to keep evolving. Okay.
Yeah. And so very kindly, I'm just getting a text, sorry, from Mary Jane. It's so very kindly, Mary Jane's staff is doing a really nice summary of the call and
Oh,
send it
great.
out. And so then I can just forward that to you.
That's perfect. And I was going to say, just on that front, I mean, I think we'll defer to you on when we need to meet, doing kind of a special board meeting to do these updates. But I love the summaries that you've been sending out, the daily, summaries. So thank you for that.
Yeah, it's as long as they keep sending them. Otherwise, I'll do something like this by the end of the day.
Okay. No, I
I
think
think,
that sounds fair.
yeah, and I think I'll, probably update families on Tuesdays and Thursdays kind of thing, unless something really big comes along, or if you think it's, people want to hear more often. I think, again, the more often I put something out, the less, the more inundated people get and they stop looking. So, it's that balance.
Yeah.
No, I think twice a week makes sense. And I think people are mostly interested in how long is this going to go on, and at what changes are being incorporated into this remote learning situation as it continues to evolve. So I think updating people on those two things and if something urgent happened, like if they came out and said we weren't coming back to school for the rest of this school year, like I think that would be an immediate announcement regardless of the day of the week. But if it's just evolving gradually, then twice a week seems enough.
Okay.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Or go ahead.
Major school, things that are calendared. I guess that, like I'm thinking about the Gold Country trip and other things that, span these dates or close to those dates. Will maybe principals just message the grade levels involved separately versus the mass emails, or how will each of those different sort of, calendar dates be approached?
Yeah, so we're holding off on making a decision about Gold Country because the deposit or final payment, one of the two, I can't remember which, isn't due until the end of March.
Okay.
So we're just sort of holding out hope that there'll be something that we know by then that would make it less likely that it's going to be canceled. But if we have to commit that kind of money and it's non-refundable and we aren't sure, it's unlikely that we would go ahead and do that. I have, we're not depositing any checks.
Yeah.
So if we have to, we can just return them.
So we started pushing things back in SFUSD, like we pushed back school proms, like we started to reschedule things. So I don't know if that's a consideration about any big events, asking or like proactively asking for later dates.
I'm sure they are, but I will see. I mean, I don't know how you would reschedule. I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I have a feeling they've already tried, have been in contact with. So those places like, I can't remember the name of it, whatever the place is on the river where they go camping for Gold Country, they tend to book they're booked week after week, but who knows? This could change everything.
Okay. Thank you.
I think I heard that, Heather, you probably know, is Tara signed up to go to Washington? No,
she isn't actually.
Oh,
I know.
I think they're talking about doing it in June, but
interesting. Okay.
That's a private company, so I don't know.
Yeah. I know. I think that's the word for everything right now. It's the wait and see. I mean, that's the same appointments I get rescheduled for, orthodontists, things like that. No one's even rescheduling because they just say, we'll get back to you when we can. I just feel like that's the word right now.
Yeah.
But anyway. All right. Any other questions or should we move on? Okay. I think the next one is, we'll go right into salary schedules. And that was, does everyone have the document? It was sent out by Maureen. Okay, great. Just have it in front of you. I know I'm going to pull it myself. Davina, do you want to maybe set this up in terms of why we are having this discussion and take it from there in terms of?
So I just wanted to set a precedent that when we have opportunities for new positions, that we just make sure that we all are given an opportunity to look at comparable salary scales and reevaluate given our fiscal situation. And so since this was going to be a new hire, and I'm not sure where we're at with the assistant principal situation, but I just want to make sure that we take that opportunity. And then also in my own sort of research, and then also what Leadership Associates shared, comments about salaries being on the higher end comparatively. I just think it's important for us to have eyes wide open. And if we want to keep this salary scale, and that's what the board wants to do, that we do that. And if we want to make changes, that we should be given an opportunity to make changes. I know this is very much, if you're following, even just within Marin, constant restructuring in districts is changing salary scales, changing positions around. It's very common practice right now, given everybody's in this, fiscal crisis. So just want to make sure that we're being responsible. And if we make a decision like this, then we're stuck with it for a very, very long time. So anytime we have the opportunity, I think it's good to pause and just think it through together, especially during these times. So that's where I'm coming from on it.
What was published with the job posting? What was the range?
The one you're looking at.
The principal posting?
The 137, 669 to 178.89. That's what was on the job posting. And that's
Okay.
That's this year's scale. That's not next year's scale, which would be 2.5% higher.
And I believe most of what I shared, I should have put the dates, but most of the comparison salaries are for next year. It's whatever the board had published in the, you can easily do your own Google search and go onto the salary scales. But I would have to verify that. So some may, I believe most of them are for next year, but I have to verify. Or we would have to verify that. But it was just to give you a ballpark range. So you can kind of see where we fall. And then I think the other thing to point out is the difference on the cap. So the range is quite different. So even if we are, let's say, similar to a district in the starting salary, kind of the step one, how far up we go. Something that stood out to me.
Well, I think partly that's a function of us building steps out when Sally topped out of the 10 years that we had.
Yeah.
And so that's why that is as high as it is, because she's been here for 16 years. And I would say a couple things, two things. Just from the experience of hiring Grant 2 years ago, we were in hot contention for him with Ross Valley. And I know that one of the reasons he came to us was we paid more. And he couldn't take a salary cut. He took one anyway, coming from Palo Alto, and was, that was at least one consideration. And so if you're looking at our comparables, with Reed, Ross, Mill Valley, if that's sort of the company we want to keep around trying to get principals to come to us instead of going to someplace else, people look at the money. And that's just something to think about.
Yeah. From being in a district that pays a lot less, I think that there's a lot of working conditions and a lot of other factors that site leaders look for that we have found in all of our research of who goes to which positions. So I would say that, yes, salary is an issue, but I also think in this field, there's a lot of other factors.
Liz, can you update us on where we are in the process with candidates?
Yeah, we're on hold like the rest of life. But my thought process now is that in order not to stall this out completely, this is on my list of things to do tomorrow, I'm hoping, or tonight actually, is to recontact all of the applicants, or our interview candidates. So we had 8 people lined up to come and interview, and thank you. Oh, thanks. Yeah, I found it actually. Thank you, Kirsten. And we're going to do a remote interview basically, but not as a group. So my thought is that we have the performance task, which is an in-basket or an email inbox task, the interview questions, and then a writing prompt. That's what the committee landed on as how they wanted to screen for our final interview candidates. So my thought process is to send that packet out. It's a packet that we give them when they arrive for their interview. Send that packet out, ask people to prepare. They can do the writing prompt. It's going to be an honor system at this point, and I don't know how to get around that. But spend 30 minutes on the writing prompt and prepare oral responses and videotape themselves giving them to the inbox activity or the email inbox activity and the interview questions. And then I'll give them like 3 days to do that and get it back. I don't think it's gonna be this week. I think some people are on spring break who are our candidates already, because all Sonoma County is on spring break, but also it's still the problem that we had last Friday, which is people's heads are just all over the place, and they're all on sites and they're all busy. So if I give it to them next week, get it back in 3 days, circulate it electronically to the committee with a rubric, then work on perhaps by that point we'll have Zoom set up so we can have a group chat about our top candidates and get us down to our 3 finalists. And perhaps by then we'll be back in business to be able to hold an on-site interview. But trying to get like the 15 people of the committee into a situation like this at the same time when people's kids are home and they're doing online instruction. I just think it's got to go really like disintegrated in a good way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here are my thoughts. First of all, Davina, thank you for collecting that information. I think it's really helpful and relevant and fresh information. Secondarily, I would say Liz makes a good point in terms of we want to make sure we hire the best candidate for this role. Obviously, we all know the budget well, and having served on negotiations, I know it's my preference, as is everyone's, to save some monies here. We will get some savings just because Sally is at the highest level now, so we will get some savings. My preference is obviously to hire a principal where we could get as much savings as we can, but we also don't want to hire the wrong principal, and that will be even more expensive, literally and figuratively, 1 or 2 years down the road. So I'm in favor of obviously this has already been posted, so I don't want to tear it up and start over. I want to keep going forward, finish the process, being mindful that this is higher relative to our peer districts, and hopefully we can land with some savings, but I don't want to start the process over, especially given how competitive and important this role is going to be.
So I share a lot of those thoughts. I am struck by how much higher the top end of ours is than the other districts. And so, one, I certainly wouldn't want to see us increase this by the 2.5% raise that was given where we have somebody new coming into the role. And secondarily, I would be interested in looking at whether we can create a cap that's lower. It just seems like not that there wouldn't be steps along the way, but that maybe those final steps don't have increases that are as big. It does seem like it's a lot higher on the top end.
Well, there are a lot of principals who are around for 16 years.
Yeah.
And that, I think that's all that is a reflection of, and it's up to the board every year whether or not you want to give the administrators the same raise that you give the teachers.
Well, and I think, from an equitable standpoint, once we have existing employees, if we're giving raises, I agree generally with the philosophy that we give them to everybody in the, if you say it's 2.5%, it goes to everyone who's currently in our employ, like without question. But I guess this is a good moment to pause on what is a particularly highly compensated role in the district, which is, this isn't a question of somebody not getting a raise they're expecting or that they would think they are entitled to based on our past practices. This is a new hire. So I feel like we don't need to bump this schedule by the 2.5% raise that would otherwise be coming. In other words, we could hire them using this schedule regardless.
So something that creates is a you're going to have a difference between, and we already have a difference between elementary and middle school principal salaries, and I don't know why. I've never really understood that. It implies somehow that middle schools are harder to run than elementary schools, which, you know, I've done both. I could argue both. So I don't know if you want that differential to get worse, because that will be forever more like that.
I think some other data points to consider is the feedback that we got from KIC around the pushback around admin salaries and what we're spending on that end and what we've heard from the community. And I also want to say that since we are not yet at the May deadline, trying to find savings right now, I think is top of mind for a lot of people. So I want to say those data points, and then I also want to say how many applicants we did is an indicator of the demand for the position. So how many applicants were there, Liz?
Well, there were 39 and about half of them were complete. So I think let me look.
So
reading, well, talk among yourselves. I'll tell you in a second.
So what I'm saying is I don't think that we're finding in Marin that there is a lack of applicants or demand for the job based on the data points that we're getting in. And so that's where I stand. I feel like we are going to get very strong people. And I just worry about the choices that we're making in a time where we have these kinds of teacher reductions.
Absolutely.
Right. I know that's, so I do agree. Just, I mean, what Kwat was saying in terms of we want the best. I mean, obviously I think I'm going to echo everyone's same sentiments. We want the best candidate. We want to stay competitive. But I also think as a practice, I like this, Davina, that what you're doing in terms of like every hire that we're doing at this level, we should be looking at this and thinking hard about what what our actual costs are. I think it's just a different time, which we may not have done this, a year ago. I don't remember us reviewing the Kent principal salary schedule before that hire. Kwok, I don't know if you remember that. I think that it didn't.
No, but
it didn't happen.
We did it at the board level.
But I think it's something that we should consider going forward for all of major hires. It's an important decision. But I wonder what Sarah suggested about on the top end of it. What would it take? I'm just asking out of ignorance, if we change the top end of this, like, what would that look like, Liz?
Well, why don't we, you can just pull the salary schedule and talk about it at your next meeting and decide how you want it to be incrementalized and where you want it to end. And then, then you have to be willing to say, let's say we bring in somebody, it's a 10-year salary schedule, and we bring somebody in on year 3, and they're here for 10 years. Are you going to not pay them? Are they not going to get any this reflects, an incremental step beyond. Are they just going to stop at what they make at 10 years and not make it, and then not advance any farther? Or are you going to build out? It's very typical to build out a salary schedule as somebody stays with you longer, to reflect their longevity, basically. So right. I don't know.
But I think if we're also trying to build a practice where we're giving percentage point raises every year, then the steps at some higher mark become less important. In other words, I agree that people's compensation generally should increase for every year of service they have in the district, whether that's the smoothing of the salary schedule or the raises or a combination of those things. But I guess I don't see it as that person, once they hit the top of the chart, doesn't get to participate. They'll participate across the board with everybody else with these raises that get negotiated basically on an annual basis, barring financial crisis. So I still would like to at least not move up from the schedule that's been given. But that's just my own.
I agree with that.
Right.
And 10 years from now, we're not going to be anywhere near close guessing what we're going to be like 10 years from now. I think, this year and the next 2-3 years is what we should spend our time on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Heather, just to sort of answer your question, looking at the schedule, because I've had it up, in some of those years, each year is an increase of $3,000 or $4,000. So it would be possible theoretically, if you pulled back on enough of those, to continue it out for 16 years, but have it be smaller automatic increases separate from the negotiated raise. And so I guess we could discuss that
Right.
if
I
we
see.
wanted to
Okay.
at a board meeting.
Yeah.
Right. But there's also the timeliness of, and I think that's what, Liz, you're talking about too.
Right.
I mean, I agree with that. Like you would have to let people know, and when and how, and it would have to, I'm assuming, at a regularly scheduled board meeting, which is still a few weeks out.
I mean, one
Yeah.
option, and I'm just throwing it
Yeah.
out there, one option would be to say, let's just cap it at 10 years right now.
Right.
Under
Yeah.
the current
Yeah.
numbers, just say that years 1 through 10 are per what was released to everybody when they applied to this job. That's going to be our salary schedule for next year. The board is going to look at steps past that, and then we don't have to delay the expectations of the people we're interviewing, and we can
Yeah.
then internally talk about whether we want
Yeah.
to build out that section, and if we do, what we want the numbers to look like.
I think that's an easy solution.
Yeah, that sounds fair. And I know, David, you haven't weighed in. Do you have any strong opinions on this either way, or?
I really don't. I
Okay.
think it's a balance of the people that show up and what it takes to get them. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like this is more a decision at that level. But I do agree generally with Sarah's observations that we can buy ourselves some time by agreeing to something that's shorter than 16 years. But I take
Right.
Liz's point that we've all benefited from Sally's longevity. So
Of course, yeah.
So a couple things. One is salary schedules have to be voted on. And so if you're going to change it, that needs to be a vote. And the other is I think it would benefit you to look at the salary schedule as you're imagining it and versus how the middle school salary schedule looks right now. I'm not at all suggesting that I don't think it would be right to amend the middle school salary schedule, but I want you to see what the delta is going to look like in a very few years between the two.
Right. Okay.
sorry, where is that middle school principal salary schedule, Liz?
They're on
I wouldn't know where to look.
schedule. I can send it out to you.
Yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that because I would definitely want to make sure that we protect the strength of our community and the relationship between the two campuses.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think it's good to create a huge delta between the two,
Yeah.
or any. So what I'll do is I will send. I'll print that out or I'll just forward you the link to the page. It's on the website under business service or human resources.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
tab for salary schedules. And then if you go to management, it's under the management salary schedule. I mean, I guess my concern is just the timeliness of this decision and the fact that, we've hired Grant under a salary schedule. He has a set of expectations. I don't think it's fair to shift those and cut the
Right.
number of years on his schedule. And at the same time, it seems to me that there is some discussion to be had around the basic compensation. And I don't want us to hire somebody and lock ourselves into a 16-year salary schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, can we vote? Can we vote on, I guess, what I suggested before, which is what's been published for 10 years without the extra 2.5% for next year, just whatever's been shared already up to 10 years, and telling the candidates that we anticipate looking at the years after that. We just aren't going to be able to do that before their contract is. I mean, whoever we hire, that's so many years down the road. I can't imagine they're going to take or not take a job based on what they get in year 14.
Yeah, I would say, it sounds like the board's going in the direction of that proposal. I'm just kind of, for the record, going to say that I still, I shared my views. If you go on the Marin County website, it shows you how many principal and assistant principal openings there are currently in Marin. I feel like Marin is a very desirable place to work. And so I personally am uncomfortable with the difference in salary in Kentfield versus Ross Valley and Larkspur Corte Madera. I don't see why we would be so far off from those two districts in the fiscal situation that we're in currently. So as a compromise, I'll still go along with, that proposal of at least adjusting in that direction, but I am very uncomfortable personally, knowing the principal market out there and doing this all the time. I really believe that we have a lot to offer candidates to come to Kentfield, and that it's not all about being at the top end of all of the other districts and us keeping, being at the top 3 paying districts. So given the amount of applicants that we have and the comps, that's where I that's where I firmly believe, but go along with the rest of the group. And I'm glad that we at least discussed it.
No, agreed. No, and thank you for bringing it to our attention. And I don't know is this appropriate that we can take action on this today, Liz? I know it's listed on our agenda.
It's on the agenda.
Yep. Yes. And so is there any interest in looking at the Basich principal side by side with the middle school principal job?
Yes.
Before taking this step?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or before making this step.
No. I think after. I mean, I think before we decide what happens from year 10 out, yes. But before we decide up to year 10, my vote would be no. I want to be timely with the people who are applying for the job.
Correct. I'm with Sarah, and I think Sarah spoke very accurately about Grant. I mean, we hired him with certain expectations. I don't think it's fair to change what we've offered Grant, but we can control.
I don't think anyone's talking about changing what we offered Grant. I think that Liz's concern is building in this disparity between the two campuses and sort of reinforcing that and creating a trajectory whereby that's exacerbated.
Well, because you have to look at the middle school salary now at 2.5%. That'll be the starting point next year. And the starting point for this Basich will be 137. So I don't have it in front of me. Do you guys have the middle school in front of you?
Yes.
What's the first step?
For the middle school, it was, hang on, let me just.
I'm afraid if I go find it, I'll lose this stream.
No, it just keeps crashing on me. It's
anything.
138. Middle school principal is 138,888 versus 137,669 for Basich. So they start out different and continue different the whole way through.
And I don't agree with that either, to Liz's point, but that is how I've always seen in every district that has multi-levels, that high school gets paid the most, then middle school, then elementary. Not to say that we have to be like that in Kentfield.
Right. So now you're going to be building in a $5,000 starting difference, which obviously compounds. And then the steps on that salary schedule are much like the steps on the teacher schedule. They basically reward you for sticking around. They're separate and apart from any raises.
Well,
right.
what was published. I mean, I think if we stick with what was published, it doesn't necessarily mean we're adding 2.5% to that for next year, do we?
That's what they.
No, I mean, for the Basich principal,
they're saying everyone's saying that's not going to happen. It'll start at 137,669, but the middle school will go up to 142.
I get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And what was
okay with
published again said 2000.
I'm sorry.
What was published was this year. Nothing has been sent out with a published date of next year.
No, but just people who know, people will know we've settled for next year.
Right.
I'm in favor. I understand the disparity in building that in, but given the fiscal situation we're in, I'm in favor of what we publish as the salary for next year. So not building in the 2.5% raise to what was published.
Likewise. I think also, I don't have the evidence, and I'm just kind of curious, as a standard, Davina, you're suggesting that this is more common, that there is a difference between, high school at the top, middle, and elementary. So there is a difference.
Yeah,
I
think in such a small district, that's not necessarily a positive thing, and I don't support that model.
Right. No,
but
outside of that. Okay. I was just curious more about that. It's kind of, do we stand out versus other districts in Marin, for example, that are other smaller districts, and having that discrepancy? But we're not going to know that right now. I don't think we can pull that data up really quickly. But it's just good to know for the future. But in some though, I do agree with what's being proposed by Sarah, and I'm okay with not giving the 2.5 for next year. And I just think the answer, quite frankly, is it's a different climate.
Yep.
Than when Grant was hired. And I think this exercise of going through these salary schedules is a really good one. Like I said from the beginning, and thank you, Davina, for taking us through that and suggesting it.
David, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so then I guess we can take a vote right now. Is that, Liz, because it is on our action agenda. And so what I'm, just so I phrase this correctly, I think this is, because it's only listed as, is there a motion to, I guess, discuss and possible action for the basic principal salary? Okay, we're going to say, is there a motion to adjust the basic principal salary scale? So it's two parts, right? If I'm correct, it's to create a 10-year principal scale for basic. And then the second part is that we will not offer the 2.5% raise for 2021.
And
That's
Heather,
right.
I would just frame it slightly differently. I would say that we are adopting the 2019-2020 principal salary schedule for the 2020-2021 school year for the first 10 years of service, and that the years of service after that we will look at and assess. But for now, we're adopting for next year the same schedule that's in place this year up to the 10-year mark.
Right. Liz, did you get that? Beautiful. Thank you, Sarah.
Sure.
It's too bad we're not reporting out from closed session. Okay, so that was like, so is there that's a motion. That was our motion. That was our motion. Is there a second? Is there
I'll second.
Okay, discussion. I think we've had a thorough discussion on this. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Motion carries. Okay, I think that was good. Thank you again. And I guess that's it. We're adjournment right here. It's 4:14. And we don't have anything else. Yeah.
Can I just ask a logistics? Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kwok. What'd you say?
Flows and grows. Are we doing that now?
Yeah, we do have to
Flows
do
and
those.
grows. Can I ask a question before we get to that?
Yes, thank you.
Currently, I am holding March 31st, a chunk of hours to review the applications for the superintendent search with LA. Are we doing that remotely?
I know, it makes me laugh. I actually heard from Mark Ecker today saying, I'd like to talk with you about, because I was thinking about the same thing. He wants to talk about their new protocols and how they're going to conduct meetings. I would imagine it's going to be that, setting up something like this. But he's going to be calling about 6:30 tonight to tell us about what that looks like.
Because the next thing, I'm aware of many, many things and places canceling everything through the end of April. So, of course, the next thing that's on my radar is we have 2 days of interviewing scheduled for April 17th and April 18th, all of us theoretically in a room with all these different candidates.
Yeah,
I think we need to at least be thinking and talking to Mark about what's plan B, because we don't have a lot of time to spare, just like the principal search. We need to get these interviews rolling, and we need to try and find and identify the candidates we want to bring in. So I don't want to delay it, but I also am not totally sure how we do what we're planning to do in the current environment.
Agreed. I mean, I think hopefully he'll have some solutions in sight. Because I mean, imagine this is the number one question across all of their searches they're currently doing. So yes, I will send an email out today, just with an update on the logistical part of what's going on with this.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I know, all in the same boat. I like, Liz, your creative suggestions though about the video, people answering questions by video. And these are, it's different times.
Cool, but it's what it is. It's what we can get done.
Yeah. Okay. No, I guess I'm the one that has to report back on the glows and grows. I would say this is our first time ever doing something like this. Liz, kudos to you for setting this up.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think we did the best we could under the circumstances that we have. And I know that people will be able to watch this video later and we'll make it subsequent questions, but I think we're trying our best. And Liz, thank you for sending out the communication about the meeting. I think all of those things were, highly useful.
And the creative gift carding. That's great.
Everything about that. I know. Believe me, I think that's such a, but anyway, so that's my only, no growth.
I can't hear Kwok.
Oh, you missed the creative gift carding, that he loved the creative gift carding idea for the free and reduced lunch families. I know. And does anyone else have any grows? I certainly think we have lots of glows.
Get a flag next time for a pledge.
Yeah, I know. I will work on that part of it. I was trying to get my kids up here to do clearly they cleared house, so they're not here either. But anyway, okay.
I have one in my office, so I can do that for you.
Next time you do it,
I can see you, David. We can see it.
Yes, next
that?
time.
I can see your flag.
Yeah, and I used it as a prop for my conversation I presented to Eloise's Redwood High School. So I think I would probably adjust it.
That's hilarious.
Really good. No, that will be, you are going to be the flag, you are going to be saying the pledge next time we meet, David. You have,
And
you
of course,
have,
it's on all the Boy Scout uniforms. So I got
I know.
tons of flags.
yes. All right. Well, thanks everyone. Hope everyone
Okay.
stays safe and healthy.
All right.
Yeah.
All
All
right.
right.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Take
Thank you.
care.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Adjourned.